They're getting after us. Look at that. Alright, there's the hives in the background. Ooh, they've been nasty today, hadn't else.
Oh yeah, I probably got stung about 10 times
Yeah, I've been
over the course of like an hour.
stung a few times too. Queen, there she is. What do y'all think?
It's cool.
Cool, huh? March 20th. Next step on the journey for these bees. There's Austin. Checking out the queen cell. The little honeycomb here. We'll try it out. That's so good. Wow, look at this. These bees are really getting after me after I went through that box just then. All I can smell, it smells like bananas. That means they're mean. That means they're fed up with me. That means they want me to get out of here. Beautiful dark queen. Set them up. Well, it's a beautiful afternoon out here at Lake Patty Sue. I don't know if you can hear them or not, but they are just humming. They're just busy. Wow, 2020, what a crazy year. We got COVID, violence in the streets, we got a crazy political situation. My goodness, somehow we made it through. I'm gonna tell you something, my bees, it's a great year with the bees. It was a lot of work, but man, it was fun. It was fun to see how things progress this year. Here in Alabama, we had a very mild winter, and so things started happening very quickly. January was mostly about getting equipment ready and prepared. It was also about getting the bees on pallets ready. We did send some bees off for some pollination out of town. Once that happened, we were moving on into February and the bees were starting to bust at the seams. We started focusing more on the local production hives. I don't know if I've ever seen a time where by mid-February, the hives were as strong as they were this year. They were boiling, growing, just doing great. We even did some splits in February. A friend of mine named Chuck helped me. We went out and tried some different kinds of splits. I actually used a bunch of queen cells this year for my splits from Sleeping Bear Apiary. It's a way to get some queens going early and is much more affordable than buying mated queens. So that's kind of how we started the year off. Well, things were going crazy in February. The bees were growing. I think I caught my first swarm that I could remember in 2020 on the 28th of February, I believe. The next day, my buddy Rusty and his wife Christy from Herding Bees with Rusty and Mike YouTube channel. We went out about an hour west of here to an old abandoned house and removed 2 survivor colonies from the walls of that old house. A friend of mine at work had told me about it, had a great time. All these stories and all these things I'm telling you about are actually on my channel. We made those splits and just for catching swarms, March was going well. Notice the bees started packing some honey in, probably from clover, maybe and other flowers that were blooming in the area. Not much cold weather at all. Typically here in this area in March, you'll have a little cold snap, and it's actually kind of dangerous because you can lose some bees then during that cold snap if they've started to build up and then nothing's coming in. But this year there wasn't much of that going on. It stayed mild, great year. We got the bees back on the pallets and immediately took them down to watermelons down in Hartford, actually south of Hartford, a place called Black down in that area, Alabama. A friend of Rusty's. has a bunch of acres of watermelons. So we put 30 hives down there, and immediately within a week or two, I split them all down the best I could and got to 52 hives there. I split them really too hard. I did utilize the queen cells. Many of them did well, but some of them didn't do so well. Especially some of the hives with the older queens in them had some issues. And so I had to, as time went on, I had to replace some of those and try and strengthen them. Made a few more splits, put some mated queens in there from various places, and ended up with 60 down there by the time I moved them out of there in the first part of July. In this area, you have some clover and things that bloom early in the spring, like March, so forth. But in April, the privet blooms, and that's really the first decent flow that we usually have here. And in certain areas, the bees were really just packing honey in earlier than usual, just killing it. It was so much fun, and the hives were strong. And I harvested some honey from Honey Hill Farm end of April, first time I've ever done that. Going to backtrack a little bit here though. I made a few purchases this year. The first big purchase I made this year was I bought a trailer, 7 by 16 foot trailer. It was a utility trailer, so it's been a big help to me to be able to haul things around. Just different equipment, supplies, my feeder. It's been really great with honey harvest. You just stick all the supers on there, haul it back to extract the honey. We harvested some honey at the end of April. I tried a new technique this year that I really liked. I put the honey boxes on in anticipation of the bees moving up to give them more space, and the bees started working those honey supers. A couple of weeks before we decided to harvest, I put queen excluders in there, so the bees would go up. Were already in those upper boxes, and so they continued to go through them. It worked well. In the past, the bees have been hesitant at times to go through those queen excluders when I just put them on and then added the honey supers on top of them, so that worked well. And then a couple of days before we decided to harvest, I put bee escapes on the hives, and the bees removed themselves from the honey supers, and it was so easy to pull that honey off and take it to extract it. I utilized that technique this year, and it was just a fun, much more enjoyable experience. It did add a step, but I really liked it. Another piece of equipment I ordered was a simple Harmony Farms uncapper. Made it much easier to uncap the honey. So we harvested honey, Honey Hill Farm, end of April. My first production hives we harvested first part of May. And then mid-May to early June, the bees collect nectar from a tree. It's called the tallow tree. Great source of nectar for the bees. Probably our biggest honey flow in this area. A lot of people here locally call it the popcorn trees, and the bees just love it. We had a really nice harvest this year. We harvested again in June. By that time, my friend Rusty had helped me figure out a uncapping tank to put the Simple Harmony Farms uncapper on, and it worked great, beautifully for the next harvest. Made life a lot easier. I'm all about making my life easier. The older I get, the more efficient I want to be, and that was kind of my goal this year, was to become more efficient in a lot of ways. We harvested honey in June. Near about that time, I realized I was going to have to feed some of my bees, especially the bees that were down on the watermelons. They weren't getting a lot of nutrition. They were getting, I'm sure, some pollen from the watermelons, but very little nectar. So Rusty helped me rig up a pump system for a 275-gallon tote that I had, and it helps mix the sugar water up, and then it helps distribute it, and it works really well. I really appreciate all the help he gave to me this year. So moving on along, basically trying to work with those bees down in Hartford and keep them alive, trying to feed them, work with them. In early July, I knew I needed to get them out of there. The watermelons were dying. They weren't doing all that great. They were doing okay, but I tried to strengthen them with some mated queens and everything, and made some more splits. We were up to about 60 down there, but I knew I needed to get them out of there. It was time, and they weren't really serving a purpose down there. And so we moved them up to Lake Patty Sioux, irrigated cotton all around there, just starting to bloom, if I remember correctly. And that is a great source for bees during a dearth in the rest of the area, or a lack of nectar. If you got cotton around, especially irrigated cotton, you're going to be in pretty good shape, and that really helps strengthen those bees. Put them out there. It's a beautiful spot. Many of my videos from the summer on are out there at that location with those bees. So we did that. I did one more harvest, just a few gallons of honey from my production hives in July. And then it was all about preparing the bees for winter. So I got a call from a friend of mine in late July, and he told me, Bruce, you need to check your bees. The beetles are awful this year. And I had not noticed that very much in my bees. And so I went out, and some of my hives were just full of small hive beetles. And so I jumped on that, got those treated, and I show you the technique in one of my videos. Right around the end of July, I did that. And I was out there after dark one night in late July, mixing up sugar water in the rain. Bees needed to be fed. Just not a lot happening here from a nectar standpoint. July, August, September, very difficult on bees unless you have them near a source of nectar, such as irrigated cotton. And so got that taken care of. Had a family trip out to Utah, and while I was there, I went to visit a place called Roots Charter High School. A guy I've met years before, Tyler Bastian, is the principal out there, and he took me on a tour of his place. They use farming to teach these high school kids valuable lessons and to help get them through high school. Pretty neat concept, and of course they have bees, so I was able to go through their bees and do a video on that. Got back in town, checked for mites. The bees mostly were under the threshold for mites, but we did find that some were over threshold. So I decided to treat the bees. I put Apivar strips in all the hives. You got over 100 hives. That's a lot of Apivar strips, and it's an expensive endeavor, but it was worth it to me, especially if it was effective to help treat the mites. Historically, I've used oxalic acid vapor, but that is just, it can just become time consuming when you have a large number of hives. Even if, one treatment doesn't take that long, but if you have to treat 3 or 4 times within a 3 or 4 week time period, it really gets time consuming. And like I say, I'm trying to become more efficient. And so the Apivar strips really worked well. We put them in there in August and then took them out a few weeks later. From that point on, it's mostly been about trying to keep the bees fed. I really got super fatigued towards the end of the summer. I do work full time at the hospital, and so trying to fit this in the cracks. And so I just was really tired and a little burnt out. And so it's been a good break for me just to check on them occasionally, feed them occasionally, and then work on selling honey. Which brings me to another topic. We purchased a Maxent 16-gallon bottling tank. Game changer. It's really helped us. So much more efficient. We've done it the old-fashioned way for so long, and it was expensive, but let me tell you something, that thing, it's been a lifesaver for us. I'm not sure why we didn't buy it sooner. I guess just because of the cost. Mid-November, I decided to plant some clover. I spread some seed out around a lot of my production hives, and it was a little late in the season for that. Hopefully that clover will come up nice and we'll have a nice crop. If not this year, I'm moving forward in future years. And besides selling honey, that's mostly what we've done. Just try to keep the bees fed, make sure they're reasonably strong, and pretty much stayed out of them. I did go down a few days ago to the bee house in Bristol, Florida, and purchased some corn syrup. I also purchased some pallets, new pallets, and then a few lids for some hives. And so we're trying to get the equipment built back up, get these bees fed, get some weight on the hives, and 2021 is just around the corner. In a couple of weeks, things are going to pick up here again, and I anticipate a very busy year in 2021. I hope you come along with me for the ride. I appreciate all of you who have watched my videos to this point and joined me on this journey. And I hope it's been valuable to you. Hope you've enjoyed it. I don't claim to be an expert. I make a lot of mistakes. This is not a how-to channel. It's more of a vlog, and it kind of take you along on the journey with me. What I try, sometimes I fail, and when I do, hopefully you can learn from that and avoid those same mistakes. But some things are very successful for me, and hopefully they can help you kind of figure out what you want to accomplish in your own situation. That's it for 2020. I hope y'all give me a thumbs up if you like what you see. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Tell your friends and family about it, and hit that notification bell to see future videos from me. Thank y'all. On to the next video.